No hallowed skein of stars can ward, I trow, who's once been set his tryst with Tristero. Things then did not delay in turning curious.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the IMMP, the Inter-Millennium Media Project podcast. My name is Matthew Porter.
And I'm Ian Porter.
I'm his dad, he's my son, and every episode of the IMMP I introduce Ian to some piece of media from way back in the 20th century, a whole other millennium.
Oh my goodness.
Often it's movies or television, but this time it was a book.
It was a book from 1965.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. And a book that you've tried to suggest that I read before. This has been one of those like looming things that has been on the horizon of podcastdom for a long time.
Yes. We sometimes refer to this podcast as a misuse of parental authority. Maybe this is an example of that. I finally got you to read this book.
Oh,
Thomas
goodness.
Pynchon's The Crying of Lot 49.
Father, what have you done? What in the world was this book?
And I do not recommend this book lightly because it had a very big impact on me and my reading habits and my worldview and so many things.
This had a big impact, really.
I'm sure you're shocked to hear that.
Absolutely. I understand how each of us work well enough that the moment I partway into this book, I'm like, oh yeah, this is something on my dad's bookshelf. This absolutely lines up with it. I didn't know a lot about Thomas Pynchon, and I didn't know a lot about this book. I know it had been one of these pieces of literature that comes and goes and is in kind of the popular zeitgeist, but not in the center. It kind of orbits the edges and influences the weird.
Mm-hmm.
And once I started listening to this audiobook, it really clicked that this is a book whose style of speech is as much its impact as anything else. It's got a lot of interesting discussion, but the way it plays with language is so powerful.
And that's one of the things about Pynchon in general. It's not just his worldview and his storytelling, but also his use of language is so distinctive and so interesting. And so it is both complicated and smooth at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best description I could come up with. And there are other Thomas Pynchon books that I might subject you to at some time. I'm going to have to find a time when you have literally nothing to do for 6 months before I make you read Gravity's Rainbow. But I thought Crying of Lot 49 was a pretty good introduction here.
Okay. That's a terrifying thing. I will say I was surprised with the size of Crying of Lot 49. It's short. It's kind of swift in its subject.
What I've heard, I if I'm remembering this correctly, that while he was writing his enormous tome, Gravity's Rainbow, he took a break at one point to write The Crying of Lot 49.
Oh goodness, that makes sense.
And usually towards the end of an episode, I'll talk a little bit about how I came to a particular piece of media that we're talking about. I'm wondering if it's worth talking about that up front here.
I think you need to.
Because long before your time, but I'm sure you have heard about all the anti-D&D panics of the 1980s.
Yep.
And how Dungeons and Dragons was going to ruin our children and lead them astray in all these different ways. That might have been correct in some ways.
What in the world, Dad?
In my case, at least. And here's why. I playing D&D since the white box in the 1970s. Very into it in middle school and high school. And that meant that I would, a couple of times a year at least, go and hang out at The Complete Strategist, the store in New York City. And I still visit when I can when I'm in New York. But I used to be there in college and high school, going there with your Uncle Jim. And I did that because I wanted to buy D&D stuff. But one of those trips to the Complete Strategist, I bought a copy of the Steve Jackson Games, the first edition of Illuminati.
Oh boy.
Which was their game with little cards, and you would create each player would be creating a network of conspiracies by linking these cards together in front of them on the play area. So you would end up with these conspiracy networks where the Boy Scouts controlled the international Swiss banking system, who in turn controlled the orbital mind control lasers because of their influence on professional wrestling, and all these wild conspiracy networks. Fun game. Really liked that game, especially the original version of it. Some cards didn't age well, but still. In the notes for that game, in the rule booklet, it had like recommended reading.
Oh no.
Because it was all about weird networks of conspiracy. So its recommended reading included things that I then read and which had an enormous impact. Things like Wilson and Shea's Illuminatus trilogy. Things like some of the Subgenius stuff. And of course, The Crying of Lot 49 by Thomas Pynchon. So I started reading Thomas Pynchon because of a game that I picked up at the Complete Strategist. And I was in the Complete Strategist because I'd been playing D&D for years. So, you know, when people complained or warned that D&D was going to change the minds of our children, they were right, sort of, in this weird conspiracy network kind of way.
So wait a dang minute. You, as a kid, play Dungeons and Dragons, and it gets you reading weird books like this. And I, as a kid, play Pokemon, and it gets me reading weird books about ancient alchemy and mysticism because I'm trying to understand the cultural references that game makes. I can understand so deeply right now.
You know, it's games and reading. If we just keep our kids away from those two things.
Oh, no, of course. Well, and okay, the fact that we have already gotten into it. Yeah, this is a book about conspiracies is such an unexpected thing, honestly.
Oh.
I did not see that coming. And the fact that I knew so little actually helped.
Oh, that's good. I wanted to encourage you to read this, but not give anything away.
And yet, the fact that I knew so little meant I didn't know if I would like it or if it would be my thing. And so there's this weird split between, like, you've got to know whether or not you like this kind of weird, but you've got to not know what of that kind of weird is in the book. But there's the way this connects things, the way this flows from moment to moment, because the story itself is kind of simple. Of course, like any of our podcast episodes, this is going to be a spoiler discussion of this story. It's a story about a person at a very difficult time in their life making not the right choices at all the times as she tries to deal with an ex-romantic partner's estate and finds an entire conspiracy network while doing so. That's a simple explanation. That's actually kind of blunt. But the way it goes about telling you all this is so fascinating.
And it does that better than so many stories that are about secret societies and conspiracies and the like, because it is so smooth and so subtle in that it starts out with a conflict, something that this woman has to deal with. She's in her late 20s. Her marriage is not especially happy, and now she's got to go to another town to perform her duties as the executor of the estate of her ex. And there's enough of a story right there in many ways.
Yeah.
But then, little bit by little bit, things related to this estate, and her ex was a millionaire who had lots of different real estate and corporate holdings, and it was a complicated estate, so it would take a long time to deal with. And it's so little piece by piece, things that don't seem like they would necessarily lead anywhere. Like he has an investment in a company that was making charcoal filters for cigarettes. And that's like the little crack that leads into this whole world beyond the wall of what we think is normal.
Yeah. And it does a great job of the fact that every single thing is described with this weird combination of depth and interconnectivity and relation. No item is just this thing. It's always got descriptors added. But that means that once it starts telling you a story about all these weird interconnections, that bit of language and that insistence that it not speak plainly becomes an asset, as every little thing in her room, every little thing she sees becomes a potential connection. And it draws you into the same sort of paranoia.
And there's also a functional thing there, too. Something that you notice with mysteries. Mysteries are sometimes referred to as wonderful time capsules of when they were written, because you have to describe everything so well. You can't just describe the important things, or you're giving away what the clues are.
Mm-hmm.
In a similar way, because this is a mystery it's not a murder whodunit, but it is a mystery. You have to describe everything as if it is filled with import, because some things are, and you don't want to give away which ones.
Yeah, and there is murder.
There is murder, yes.
But it's not a murder mystery.
Right. That's more of a consequence than the instigating event.
And it's one of those mindsets, it's one of those things that'll seep in as you listen to the story, and its dulcet tones become ubiquitous in your surroundings as you walk, and your everyday objects start becoming more lucid and more tangible than they once were. Small things in your life will become focused and shift, and suddenly you'll find yourself searching up the book to see more and falling upon old Wikipedia articles of Thomas Pynchon and Wikipedias for the entirety of the book itself. The HTML's dulcet blue tones in the background, lulling you into a sense of security until you realize that you've not listened to more book in half an hour, and you're just thinking in that mode now. And that's what's going through your brain. I literally found myself on my lunch break at work finding the Pynchon wiki. And somehow the fact that it's this old, outdated thing fit so well. My mind was, it threw me for an absolute loop, because the same way that listening to a whole lot of Shakespeare, you'll start feeling the iambic pentameter of your language.
Oh, yes.
Listening to a lot of this at once will start to affect your language centers of the brain.
Oh, that's really interesting. And this is why books are so interesting when we talk about these, because you'll often read these as audiobooks, and I'll more often go to the text. And it is a different experience. I might have to listen to this audiobook. I listened to just a tiny bit of the audiobook to get some clips. Do you happen to know if that was the same? Did it sound like the same one that you listened to? Because it's
the same one I did. Because that one seems to be that's the easy to obtain, narrated by George K. Wilson edition, is out there in a lot of different locations, and it's quite nice.
Yeah, and a lot of books just have the one audio edition. I thought that was good, and he's a good reader. But it's not the voice that's in my head when I read this book.
Ah.
And I'm not sure in what ways they're different, but in some ways he has a very 1972 TV news anchor sort of voice, which works remarkably well for this, because he's just reporting things. They're described in weird, intricate detail, but he's presenting the language in a very straightforward way, which I like.
Oh, yes.
And in even reading this text now, and of course, years ago when I was much younger, it seeped into the way you see the world. You start to notice things or look for things. And that's something that is a factor in the book as well, is at the point at which you stop noticing weird coincidences and you start looking for weird coincidences. And it's really hard to tell. Have I always been doing this? Did I start noticing because I was looking for them? And have they always been there and I just wasn't looking? Or are they not really there and I'm only seeing them because I expect to see them?
And there's an element to the story about the fact that, like, there's that midpoint where you can actually be aware, and the safest place for the unknown and the manipulations of the world is to push past that. It's either not seen or it's so ubiquitous you don't notice it. But let's move you across that. Oh, wait, what's that? As fast as we can. Get you beyond it if we can.
And it is, even before I read this, I had a certain attraction when I was a kid for any stories about the world is not what we think it is. The world is not as it seems. There's something either supernatural or secret that is within our reach if we just knew about it.
Yes.
And I mean, we see that in everything from 101 Dalmatians to all kinds of things. And I'll love to talk about that at some point.
Oh boy.
But this book made that concrete in a way that I hadn't seen before. So it really affected the way I looked at the world for a year, probably, after I read it.
Oh, I can imagine.
And on top of that, the conspiracy that it deals with is an interesting historical conspiracy, interweaving some fact with a lot of weird Pynchon fiction.
Honestly, it was hard to search some of his stuff to find out where the fact is and what isn't. But there's definitely stuff about old stamp collecting and the like that it starts from a place of reason and then runs off in a different direction.
Right. Because the underlying conspiracy in this book, it has to do with postal systems in Europe, which seems so mundane.
Yeah.
And we've played the game, Thurn and Taxis.
Exactly.
And it involves the Thurn and Taxis postal monopoly in Europe, starting in, I think, the 16th century. And this revolutionary alternative postal service that wanted to usurp and disrupt the Thurn and Taxis monopoly, the Trastero. And
yes.
They are the conspiracy. And it turns out that they did not completely succeed in overwhelming or taking over Thurn and Taxis, but they persist and they came to America. And even in America, there are people trying to use alternate postal systems. And that's an area in which reading this in the year of our Lord 2025 is so different from reading it in like 1983.
Yes.
For a couple of reasons. One is it is so much more a period piece. Even 1983, the world was rather different from 1965, but not that different. I understood their description of a tube television. When they referenced Huntley and Brinkley. They had not been on the air for a long time, but at least from cultural osmosis, I knew, they used to be the co-anchors of the nightly news on one of the network news broadcasts. So I knew what they were talking about. And I'm wondering how much of that was just alien to you in terms of the cultural references?
The cultural references, plenty were alien. Plenty just slipped right past me. But they did a good job of not only having the cultural, but also having the tonal references.
Yes.
So even if I didn't understand what they were referencing, I understand what they were referencing in the reference, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's a good point. He doesn't just throw things out. He talks about how they impact the character he's seeing them through.
If he was talking about the modern day, I'm gonna use Pokemon again as a reference. He wouldn't just say Pikachu flashed upon the screen. He would say, as Pokemon played, the small creatures of collectible nature skittered across and brought delight to a child who was watching the television. He would explain with that extra layer in order to add that detail of weirdness that helps those connections. But it means that if you've never heard what Pokemon is, you get a rough idea from other context.
It's some cartoony
what it is
game,
he's talking about. Exactly. And that helped a lot because those references, honestly, more of the time period stuff was what was just, I mean, I could tell how this was definitely subversive and was poking fun at every single person it could in some ways. But some of its references, some of its language and such is definitely outdated in an I was uncomfortable at times way.
Yeah.
There's definitely elements of we've gotten better. this was probably not great at the time and is worse now.
Yeah,
and I don't know.
And sometimes that is he's using horrible language in the as dialogue for a person to show that this is a horrible person. And in other places, it's just this was the common language in 1965 in the narration. And not as much of that as in some of the old movies and things we've watched. But you're right, it is there. And but one of the other things that I mentioned, I was laughing before. Now that you've referenced it twice, if there's some artistically capable listener out there, I really want a deck of Pynchon cards.
Pynchon would be amazing.
Thomas Pynchon's take on
yes.
Pokemon.
Oh, goodness.
But the other thing that makes this so different reading this in 2025 versus the early 80s is the importance of mail.
Yeah.
Even in 1983, the United States mail was still a very important way of keeping in touch among individuals. People wrote letters more, and people sent postcards, and the ubiquity of the mail, the reliability of the mail, the accessibility of the mail was an important part of keeping families together, keeping cultures together, keeping the country together. That is not so much the case in 2025, where most personal communication is performed online.
I found it so fascinating there because this was from 65, yeah?
Yep.
In 1970, there was the giant postal strike.
Yeah.
That changed a whole lot of things for the National Association of Letter Carriers and a lot of the other elements of the postal system. When I worked for the post office, it was a lot of what I dealt with was established in the 1970s strike.
Yeah.
So he's talking about a layer even beyond that and a time when it was all letters and packages were so much rarer and it's changed so much. There's this moment where I was almost like, huh, Tristero won as I check my email.
Yes.
It's like, what in the world?
You could almost, I don't want this. This is getting ahead of one of our final questions. I don't want a sequel to this, but I could imagine a sequel about the Tristero creating the first online communities.
Yes.
So this was before kind of the reorganization to the modern United States Postal Service, wasn't it? When it used to be the post office department.
Yes.
So big difference. And also there was a more established and enforced monopoly on mail, that you couldn't just start up a company to deliver letters in the way that the post office department did back then. And some of what we see are characters knowingly or not knowingly connecting themselves with this Tristero conspiracy, finding ways around the postal service, the post office department, sending letters through corporate interoffice mail to get to other people in the country, or people who have more money wrapping letters around a brick and then putting them in a parcel and sending it by railway express, since that is a way you were allowed to ship things apart from the postal department.
Exactly.
It's like this weird innovation. For whatever reason, I don't want to use the established system, so I'm going to figure out some way to get around it.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I like the postal service, I can appreciate and enjoy that.
Yeah, there's creativity in there, and I can see how that would fit in, especially the time and everything else. It was a fascinating thing because it really is a discussion of like, here's this giant organized logistical structure, and here's thousands of people trying to connect two dots at a time. And somehow the two of these systems are equivalent in size. It's like, huh, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Mm-hmm. Because the secret one is also very, very old. It predates the United States, let alone the United States postal system. So it knew how to set these things up, either by taking over what existed already in some ways, or by creating something new, or by suppressing its rivals. There were all these throughout history, and our main character, Oedipa Maas, keeps learning more little bits of history, and history keeps repeating itself in that Tristero agents will attack the couriers of rival systems. They will attack Stern and Taxis couriers. They will lay waste to Pony Express riders. They will do everything they can to regain some kind of a hold over mail delivery, both by creating their own network and suppressing the others.
And that's also one of the things I really appreciate about this, because it does have a point in there, which was this question of, is this Tristero, is this secret postal system actually doing what it intended at first? At what point does the protection of the system become the point of the system?
And that is a great question. It's one that arises in corporations, in governments. When an organization's primary activity is protecting the organization, it no longer has a reason to exist. Otherwise, it wouldn't have to protect itself that much.
Exactly. And that is such a poignant question.
Yes.
That is such a powerful one that I didn't expect this book to be able to sneak it up on me and slowly stab me with it. I'm like, I know that discussion. Wait a minute.
And it was certainly an important question in 1965, 66, when we're in the middle of Vietnam, 5 or 6 years before Watergate, the break-ins, and then about 9 years from the hearings and Nixon's resignation. These questions about institutions and about government were really important and really in the forefront. And this is such a weird, and there was so much written asking these questions in very earnest and important ways. This was such a weird way to pose the same questions, because you have to look at it sideways to realize what it's saying.
Mm-hmm. I am interested to see also all the cultural instances of this.
Yeah.
Because of that. Because it's like, once you get to see it, you notice all these things, and it requires that level of work. It seems to be a piece of media that draws people in. If it clicks for them, it clicks deep. And just trying to look it up, I kept on finding more examples of other people's interpretations and modifications and references to and all of that. And so it's like the effort it takes there to grab those extra pieces of info means that it sticks.
Right.
And when it sticks, you get people trying to make a movie version or displaying the whole thing in semaphore and all sorts of things. And I'm like, what in the world? And it's weird because it kind of turns the crying of Lot 49 into its own muted post horn. Where it's like, once you start looking for all the references, they're everywhere. And it's all talking about this thing. There's this secret conversation.
Yes.
About the book. Because of the book, about the conversations in the book.
And that's it. You got to look for things. You find these conversations about the book. You find bits of real history that are woven into the book, like Stern and Taxis, real postal system in Europe. And you realize, oh, they were real? They're not just made up for the book? Is Tristero real? What's happening? And and all of these blend together. And it's an interesting thing that research is a thing that happens in this book, and it's important. And Oedipa winds up finding these books and multiple versions of a Jacobean revenge play that references the Tristero, and there are different versions of it where language is changed, and she finds the academics who wrote about it. But that was research in 1965. I don't know that Pynchon could have anticipated the kind of research or sort of pseudo-research that one can do in the 21st century, where all of these different sources and things, they're easy to access, but they're blended together, and their authenticity is very hard to gauge. And it just further complicates this kind of conspiracy thinking.
Yeah.
Which is both dangerous and fascinating.
I kind of want to know what Thomas Pynchon's thoughts are about modern ARG games.
Yes.
Because there's an element of that in this where it's like, I've got just enough history to give you a hook. Then I've got fun alternate stories and possibilities and a narrative for you to dive into. It's like, there's an aspect, Crying of Lot 49 is reading someone else finding an ARG instead of doing it yourself in the best way.
That has always been my bar, my benchmark for, I want an ARG that makes me feel like I am in the middle of the Crying of Lot 49. I've never quite found that yet, but that's what they should aspire to. because
Mhm.
it's just one weird little thing leading to more and more and tying together.
Exactly.
And having some hook, some key, like in this case, it's the WASTE system, which is this alternative postal system. It stands for We Await Silent Tristero's Empire.
Yes.
But what better way to hide a mail system where you can have a box sitting under an overpass and it just says waste on the lid? Like nobody's
Yeah.
going to think twice. But if you look closely, you can notice the dots in between the letters and maybe a tiny muted post horn as a symbol.
Mhm.
And there's a great scene towards, I'd say, between the third and fourth quarter of this book, where Oedipa is now just wandering around San Francisco all night. And she's seeing this post horn symbol like everywhere. And it's like
Everywhere.
and it's that wonderful, it's that dangerous shift in investigating conspiracy ideas. At what point have you gone from noticing what's there and noticing them to looking for them and therefore finding them?
Mhm.
And that's also where it gets very surreal. She meets these kind of dream children who have a nursery rhyme about the Tristero and so on. And yet part of that, I think, is reflecting the fact that she's now sleep deprived and half crazy. And she is, what she sees is, and how what she sees is described by the author, is reflecting her state of mind. And yet it pulls us in.
Yeah.
It's not clearly. And now we see what her delusions are leading her to see. No, this is how the world has changed around her from her point of view.
Exactly. We have enough buffer to notice that shift. The whole dream children sequence was weird as anything.
Yes.
And I think it's supposed to be, but that doesn't make it less so. We actually haven't talked a lot about Oedipa. I gotta say, it's interesting. You feel for her and you follow this main character, but she's not always likable. And I feel like that's important.
Very true. She's not always likable. Like anyone in any good story, everybody, heroes, villains, and everyone in between, everyone has their reasons. But she is understandable. I think she's an approachable protagonist. But you're right, she's not always likable, and I think she would probably acknowledge that she's not always likable, although again, she always has her reasons. And
Exactly.
and I think in some ways she and her attitude towards life is also a representation of something that Pynchon was talking about relative to when he was writing.
Mm-hmm.
She's a woman in the mid-1960s, suddenly given a role that she didn't ask for that had legal and financial responsibilities attached. And doing her best to execute this, and she's a very smart person, but she feels in over her head socially as part of this, it seems.
Yes.
And the first person she meets in working on this is the lawyer who is her co-executor. And she immediately takes up with him and starts an affair. And her husband has been having affairs back where they live. And it's kind of her excuse. It's kind of her explanation, but she understands this. Why does she want to do wrong in the same way that he did wrong? What does that make her?
Yeah.
And yet even those in the book, they are surrounded by absurdity, because in this motel where she's living in the town of, is it San Narciso?
San Narciso.
Wonderful names. We've got to talk about the names in this book too. But
Oh, yes.
the hired manager for this hotel is a kid who's a member of a pseudo Brit invasion band called the Paranoids, who they want to be the Beatles, even though they're all from Southern California. And they add this just layer of surrealism as they become the chorus that follow Oedipa and the lawyer Metzger all over the place, commenting on what they're doing.
And they are the Greek chorus doing that in the wildest way. And every single person she meets is characterized. They're a caricature in some form, but they're
Yes.
also, I mean, I'm just thinking of like the image of the professor and all his students who are just sitting around very, very drunk and very, very philosophizing.
Yes.
And that's one of those moments where the line in this book sometimes between the reality and the metaphor is blurry, or it's like this character is not just a character, they're also representing all of this other stuff. And that means that they're a little bit beyond normal in order to do so.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like it goes back and forth between a novel depicting a surreal world and a character who finds herself in a surreal world. Because she just kind of rolls with some of the weirdest things in the book. Like,
it really does.
Like this band, or they at one point, this first night that they met, she and the lawyer, Metzger, start playing like a game of strip 20 questions.
Yeah.
But she goes to prepare for this by going to the closet and putting on every article of clothing she has until, as she describes, she looks in the mirror and sees a pink beach ball. And it's just described. It's not, hey, and this was so weird. It's just, this is what she's doing. This is what the result is.
There's an element to that kind of makes Thomas Pynchon's work an American equivalent to Douglas Adams' British.
Oh, I would definitely say there is some influence there. I'd be surprised if Adams wouldn't have acknowledged that, just in terms of the prose style and in terms of let's present the weird as if it's normal.
But there's a similarity there that definitely, it's like, you know, Adams has some Pynchon in there in terms of that styling.
Yep.
And I could just click through and try to find more in some of these wikis and some of this information. But that's the problem. Like, every single thing can be dove into. And even Oedipa, like individual actions of hers, she hems and haws over. And the audience can hem and haw over and try to decide.
And on the names, I think that, I don't know that they are all specifically importantly meaningful. But Pynchon has such weird fun with the way he names characters in this.
Yes.
That I think he is just having fun, because it's not as if they all are something revelatory about the character themselves. But they have, you know, a character named Genghis Cohen and a character named Manny Depresso.
Yes.
And Stanley Kotex. And all of these characters who, it's as if the names are what are supposed to make you stop and say, oh, wait a minute, I'm reading a book. And then you dive back in.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the names are just funny sounding, like Professor Emery Bortz. And her psychiatrist, Dr. Hilarious.
Yes.
Who turns out to have been a Nazi involved in mind control experiments.
Which he might have been continuing.
Yes. Trying to convince Oedipa to take part.
John Nefastus.
He was the guy
who's there talking
with the perpetual motion machine, wasn't it?
Yes. Full of Maxwell's demon.
On top of the weird history and stuff, they get into weird physics as well. Where a box that supposedly, like, actually instantiates the hypothetical Maxwell's demon, which can supposedly violate thermodynamics by sorting out high energy versus low energy molecules into separate sections of a box.
But the way that the name's written, the last name, that's a last name version of the actual like Latin of like against God.
Yeah.
Nefas, not divine law. It's like, this guy is literally there. It's like, hi, I've got a demon in a box, creates perpetual motion and breaks physics. My name is John, this ain't holy. That's literally the character naming. That's the sort of stuff we're dealing with here.
That's definitely an example of the name is significant.
Exactly.
As troubled and troublesome as Oedipa's character can be sometimes, she does seem very good at just taking people at face value.
Yes.
Making reasonable judgments, in some cases wanting to get as far away from this person as she can, once they've proven themselves to be someone she should get away from. But she'll take people at face value and listen to them and make decisions. She's very quick on her feet in the way she can express herself and the way she can get a read on people. Not that they don't surprise her sometimes.
Sometimes they do.
Because as she's investigating this conspiracy, she sorts of builds this network of people who have information that who they can share with her, including Metzger, including the various academics that she meets, including the director of a stage production of The Tragedy of the Courier, I think it's called, this Jacobean play that references Trastero. And then
Yes.
at a certain critical turning point in the book, things start to happen to all of these other people. At one point, she realizes this and is recognizing, oh, they are taking away all of my men, all of the men that I have created any kind of a bond with, be it my husband, who has fallen for Hilarius's mind control stuff, or Metzger, who runs away with the girlfriend of one of the paranoid band members, or the director, who dies under mysterious circumstances, and so on and so on. She builds this network, and then it is disassembled away from her in this turnabout. And they never really explain to what extent is this being done to her, or it is just she is outgrowing it or moving on from it.
Yeah.
And yet it is real things happening to these characters. It's not just she loses contact with them. There's something happening.
There's something happening. Because some of them are doing fine, and then suddenly they're not in ways that aren't correct.
Right. And there is this sense of, oh, they are helping her, and she is getting too close.
Yeah.
And one of the nice little kind of hooks into the real world is the fact that this is about a postal conspiracy. And it seems like one of the many ways in which the Trastero are operating in the modern world has to do with fake postage stamps. These forged postage stamps with these creepy alterations, either a strange alteration in text or in the images, with Trastero symbolism in them. And I collected postage stamps back when I read this.
Yeah.
And I must admit that occasionally when I was looking at stamps, I would look at them a little extra carefully just to see if there are any alterations here, or if there's anything different. Not because I was expecting the Trastero to be real, but because it fascinated me, the idea that a small change in such a common and easily overlooked thing would be a fascinating way to get a bit of strangeness into the world.
And it's such a simple symbol once you see the artwork, because it took me a moment to realize that every edition of the book I've ever seen posted has, like, ever made, seems to have that post horn image on it in some form. And so it messes with you even looking at it. But I can understand that if, like, you're already collecting stamps and such, you're looking for these in there too. It's like, huh. Okay.
And it's interesting. Some of the alterations he describes, some of them are changes in text, like I mentioned, where the postmaster is changed to potsmaster. Yes. Some of them are adding a little black-robed Trastero figure somewhere. And one of the ones that I remembered most clearly was it was a stamp commemorating the return of Columbus to Spain to report on his findings in the New World. And he describes that the stamp had been altered so that the courtiers who were listening to this report had expressions of uncontrollable terror in hearing about this new world. That was just so much meaning layered in that change. And yet it would be such a fascinating and unsettling thing to notice in a postage stamp. I love that.
It's brilliant.
And the post horn symbol, too, was great as a Trastero symbol, because the actual symbol for turn in taxes was a post horn, a simple one loop bugle kind of thing. And Trastero's symbol was the post horn with a mute in the bell.
Yes.
We want to mute. We want to stop and silence our rivals, turn in Texas.
And that just showing up still, it's so wild.
And it's one of those things it wouldn't take me, if I was really looking for them, I could probably walk around any city at some point and find one of those written somewhere. But odds are it would be by somebody who likes this book.
Right.
It's like the 23 Enigma. It's a real thing going on out there. And yet it is so much more now that people know about the 23 Enigma and intentionally use it.
I'm trying to think of other examples. It's like, yeah, there's few instances where there's secret society symbolism that outside of the story becomes the symbol for the fans of the story in the same way.
Yeah.
Like maybe Assassin's Creed kind of thing is the best
Yeah.
I can think.
Right.
Yeah.
And
But it's
talk about something I could fold and connect into the Crying of Lot 49 very well. Absolutely.
Oh yeah,
could.
that kind of stuff. Oh yes.
That's one of the reasons I like the Assassin's Creed games, especially the early ones. It gives me a certain similarity and vibe to the historical elements of Crying of Lot 49.
Mm-hmm. And I'm here like trying to figure out. It's the sort of thing where it's like this book was fascinating enough. I want to look up like how do you do a muted post horn in 3 characters in Unicode kind of thing. Like what are the options out here? What can you do? It's the fun of it. It's weird in the right way.
I'm surprised
I
there
feel like-
isn't, or maybe there is, that there's some Tristero Linux distro out there that has post horns hidden in it somewhere.
That should be.
Because that's exactly the kind of thing that the Tristero of the Crying of Lot 49 would have started to do in the 1990s.
Exactly.
Start to influence Linux distros and internet service providers and the like.
They would absolutely be doing that kind of thing. And I'm fascinated by that because it really feels like it was ahead of its time. Crying of Lot 49 is implying this thing about the way the world is connected. It's talking about stuff in this weird and interesting way. But the things it's saying about people are things that it couldn't have even, Pynchon couldn't have predicted us having these opportunities later.
Right.
And yet we use them in such clear ways that he was able to predict. I'm like, wow. He knew this was coming, but he didn't know this was coming.
And given how long this conspiracy was supposed to have persisted, even the 60 years between the writing of this book and now isn't that long a time.
Yeah. So,
and I think we're starting to talk about more modern influences more. I think maybe we're getting into our final questions.
I think we are.
Yep. And
okay,
So we'll be back very soon with those final questions. Please stay tuned. But in the meantime, if you're enjoying the Inter-Millennium Media Project podcast and you want more, please go to IMMProject.com. And that's where you will find a link to all of our back episodes. You will find a link to our Patreon, where you can both support the podcast. And if you join starting at $3 a month, you get a bunch of bonus audio content. And there you'll also find a link to our shop, another way to support us and get cool stuff like coffee mugs and t-shirts, not just our podcast logo, but also special things for fans of stuff like Space 1999 and The Prisoner.
Yes, absolutely.
And you'll also find ways to contact us. You can contact us on our Discord. You can contact us. You can see us on Blue Sky and Mastodon. You can reach us by email, and you can contact us by genuine United States mail.
It's the mail. I'll get used to it.
We don't have a WASTE box, so I'm afraid you'll have to use U.S. mail at this point.
Yeah.
And Ian, where can people find you?
I can be found as Item Crafting, be that at itemcrafting.com or Item Crafting Live on Twitch. I stream every Thursday so come on, join us for some games and some crafting every single time.
Wonderful. Those are fun streams.
And how about you, Dad?
And you can find me as By Matthew Porter, so you can go to bymatthewporter.com. You can also find me as By Matthew Porter on YouTube, where you will find my movie and movie theater and travel reviews.
Those are always fun.
So final questions.
Final questions.
Oh, for a novel, I think what we arrived at for a novel is, it's not revive, reboot, or rest in peace, but we do have add, adapt, or adios. So
yes.
Add would be like a revival. Do we want something else in this continuity? Do we want a sequel? Do we want a prequel?
That's such an interesting question on this one. And it does lead me to a question for you. I don't know a lot of Thomas Pynchon's other works. Are his things interconnected or no?
Not really. You might be able to find some cross-references among them, but they are pretty much standalone.
Okay.
And his I'd say this is one of his most well known, this and Gravity's Rainbow. But he's also written a lot of other really interesting books like Mason and Dixon and Vineland. And
Okay.
Inherent Vice is the one book of his that I believe had a movie adaptation. I believe it did have a movie adaptation. Might be the only one.
Ah. Okay. You see, I don't think this needs a direct continuation.
Yeah.
I don't think we need the Crying of Lot 43 in that sense. But I definitely feel like it sets up this world in a way that you can have other stories call back to it, make reference, and imply potentially that they exist within the same without needing to go into it.
Yes, that's what I want. I don't want a sequel or a prequel or anything, but I want other novelists or other artists to just make little references. Just throw in a post horn somewhere. Just throw in an altered stamp someplace. Throw in a reference to one of the names we hear in The Crying of Lot 49, just to give that little hint. Oh, is this a coincidence? Or is this a connection?
Exactly. That's the sort of stuff where it's like, this has such fun potential and it can be used for that. I also don't not sure about an adaptation on this story, though. Apparently, people have tried to make a movie.
Have they?
It didn't. It was on YouTube for a little while, and it's now gone.
Oh, like so they actually produced it, or was it a trailer?
It was a student film,
Wow. Oh, okay. Interesting.
but it was removed by YouTube, not by Thomas.
Oh, interesting. I wonder if that was at the request of his publishers or anything like that, or what?
Yeah, I no clue,
Or
no
somebody
info.
else who has an option on the rights.
But I don't know how well this would adapt.
I've gone back and forth on this a bit, and at this point, I would be interested in seeing what the right people could do with an adaptation of this. I could see this being done as a film or as a limited TV series, and I could see somebody like Edgar Wright doing an interesting job with this. I could see Moorhead and Benson doing something interesting with this, although they tend to write their own stuff and they might go a little too dark with it. But I could see that working and being interesting.
Yeah.
And the one thing I have seen that is the closest I've seen as to an adaptation of this, and it's definitely an homage to this, is the TV series Lodge 49, which stars Wyatt Russell, and it is about somebody who gets involved in a fraternal lodge, kind of pseudo-Masonic kind of thing. And it seems like it's just this social club that's seen better days. And then bit by bit, you get a more complex and weird conspiracy around it.
Okay.
It's fun to watch. I would recommend that for anybody who enjoyed this. It's not exactly the same tone as this, but it's in the same league.
So it sounds like this is not like we could see someone trying to,
Yeah.
but it's not a direct adaptation kind of project. It's a add this to the concepts as you build your own, and it will infuse it with a certain kind of wonder.
Right.
And I like that fact.
Take inspiration from this. Don't necessarily
Take inspiration.
adapt or expand it.
I think that's the right move. I think that's where this should sit.
And I do recommend reading it. I think it still is a fun read.
Mhm.
Again, it's a different experience reading it now than it was 60 years ago or 40 years ago. But I think it does now, and it maybe always will have something interesting to reward a good reading.
I enjoyed it, but it was also just so odd. I think I'll want to read more of Pynchon's work, but it sounds like everything else is denser.
Yeah, denser than this. Not everything is Gravity's Rainbow, although I don't know if I wonder if Gravity's Rainbow has a good audiobook version. I could see that working.
Yeah.
And again,
I'll
not everything
find
in
out.
Gravity's Rainbow will have aged really well, but it's still worth reading.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I got you to read this, to exercise that abuse of parental authority.
It was interesting and
I think
fun.
you enjoyed it.
And I will say we talked about the names.
Yeah.
We talked about the names in this, and there is one name.
Oh yeah. What's that?
There is one name that really caught my attention because I recognized that name.
Oh, what's that?
I recognize that name from back when you showed me other stuff, and I think I know what's coming next.
Oh, yes. I think, yeah, there might be a connection there. Speaking of works that take their some influence from The Crying of Lot 49.
Oh, boy.
So we'll be back in a couple of weeks.
We'll be back in a couple of weeks.
With another tale from some media from the 20th century.
And in the meantime, go find something new to watch.